give them just enough to have an idea of who you are and what you do, but then still leave some questions unanswered. So they want to ask you questions. They want to stay and engage and get them into a conversation. When you make your introductions, keep them simple, make them ask for more. You want to have good eye contact. You don't want to stare them down. I'm a bit too aggressive, but good eye contact. Speak clearly and watch your body language. It's very interesting when you go into a networking event. I always say, take a look at the room and take a look at the body language of the people in the room. And you don't have to be a body language expert to be able to read a room. You can look around and see, who is maybe nervous and doesn't know who to walk up to just by the way they're standing. Maybe they're standing with their shoulders hunched over a little bit, or maybe they're, awkwardly looking at their phone and looking up and looking around the room. Maybe you see a group of people that are kind of all huddled, and the way they're huddled together, it's like their body language, like they don't want anybody else coming up and speaking to them. You might see a couple of people casually chatting off to the side, and the way their bodies are positioned, they're opened up to the room, almost inviting you to join them. So take a look around the room and just watch the body language for a minute, and you'll be able to figure out who you can go up and introduce yourself to. And speaking of body language, be aware of your own body language. What signals you might be sending off, especially if, tall people, beware. I know you guys can't see me, but I'm a little short, 5'2" person. And so when you think about it, tall people can be quite imposing. And I want to make sure that, most folks are aware of, their height and, just personal space, just to give people comfort, especially people you don't know. And when you walk up, have a smile, be present in the conversation, be positive, stand confident, shoulders back, head up. That's going to draw people to you. Remember their first name. A little trick I like to use when I'm in a networking situation is when I get their card, when I'm standing in a group of people, I will hold their cards in my hand, kind of fanned out, not noticeably, but kind of fanned out a little bit in the order they're standing in front of me, so I can remember whose name is what, especially if there's no name tags. And I always make sure that I'm looking at their tag when they say their name, so I make sure I get it right. If not, I'll ask them, I'll say, you know what, can I see your tag? I didn't quite hear your name right, if it's a loud room. Most people don't mind, because you want to get their name right, because it's one of the most beautiful things you can say to another person is their name. You get people's attention. It makes them feel special. Use their name. And when you first meet somebody, if you can use it immediately and a few times, you'll remember it better. And then when you come to events, be on time. There's that old adage of, on time is late and 15 minutes is on time. So make sure to get there, and with enough time to kind of, like I said, survey the room, figure out where you can maybe hang your jacket and get a drink, and just kind of, not come in rushed or stressed, or, just kind of come in easy and breathe. Especially if you're not comfortable with networking, you want to give yourself some time, be cognizant of that. A lot of accounting professionals and just service professionals in general aren't naturally extroverts. So, it takes a little more effort to get out there. And, so be patient with yourself. Don't stress yourself out about it. Take it slow. But know that everybody in the room is there to network, and they expect someone to walk up to them and say, hi, my name is, and throw out your hand and shake their hand and introduce yourself and say, what do you do? What's your company? If you can't really read it on their badge, sometimes you'll have a badge where it'll have a company name. And you can say, oh, wow, you're from Jelly Belly. What do you do at Jelly Belly? And they'll talk to you about what they do. Or if it's another service professional, I'll walk up and say, oh, you're at that law firm. What do you specialize in? My favorite question is, what is your superpower? which throws them off a little bit. It's a fun question, and it gets them to talk about themselves. So the other thing to think about is what to wear. This differs depending on what region you're in. You know, folks in, say, New York are a lot more, dress a lot more fancy, I'll say, than maybe Silicon Valley. So be cognizant of what area you're in, but also what industry you're going to. For instance, I will dress more, professional with a suit and whatnot if I'm going to, say, a manufacturing event or, even a construction event. But if I'm going to tech, or I'm going to, for instance, this past week, on Tuesday, I had an ag event for, our agriculture niche. I actually wore jeans and boots with a blazer because those farmers weren't going to take me seriously if I came in heels and a skirt. They want somebody in jeans and boots, somebody who can relate to them. On the flip side, tech, I will always wear jeans, heels, and a blazer to that because that's, more tech. My guys will sometimes wear, jeans with a nice pair of shoes, a button up, but no tie, with like a sports coat. So they're still casual, but they're still professional. So think about the event, think about who else is going to be there and how they're going to dress, and take it up just a little fancier. So yeah, for the tech events, I'll have CEOs in jeans, flip-flops, and t-shirts. So, we'll start with the jeans and just kind of dress it up a little bit. But then if I'm going into a networking event with other, bankers and lawyers and accountants, I'm going to go for the full suit because that's how, that particular industry or niche dresses. Make sure whatever you're wearing has easy access pockets. You want to make sure you always have a good stash of business cards with you anywhere you go, especially networking events. I always like to also in my pocket carry a pen so that when I'm done talking with somebody, I can make notes right on their card so that I'm going to remember them. So as soon as I'm done talking to somebody, I'm going to write down something that really will stick in my brain about them, like great orange tie or, fabulous blue jacket, or something that will trigger in my head what they looked like. Because a lot of times you'll get back to your desk, you'll have an array of cards in front of you, and you're like, I can't remember which one of these was that person that I talked to that I said I was going to send something to, but I can't remember what I was going to send them. Go ahead and make notes directly on the card. So put down, add to newsletter if they said, hey, yeah, please add me to your newsletter, or, send white paper on whatever topic you talked about. Whatever your follow-up is with them, go ahead and make that note right on the business card, as well as that little identifier. And then any information you get about them too. For instance, if they're a hockey fan, or if they're, they've got two, you talked about kids and they've got two kids and, one's 8 and one's 11, take those notes on the back too and put that into your CRM system, because the next time you connect with them, you'll remember, oh yeah, he's got those kids. Let me ask him how the kids are, how that soccer game went, or whatever, because that will help build that relationship. Because it's all about making that connection. It's all about building that relationship on a personal level. Because when you think about it, you're working with people. If you don't like that individual on a personal level, you're not going to like what you do. You're not going to like working with them. And so you want to work with people you like. So get to know them, build that relationship. So have the pockets, embrace your own style. If, I have one gentleman here who's not a big like suit jacket type of guy, but his style is vests. So he has some like really great vests that he wears. That's his style, and that's okay. He looks completely professional, but he embraces his style. If you're a female, go ahead and have some fun heels. Not the nightclub kind, but if you want to have some bright colors or, some great statement earrings, go ahead. And if that's your style, go for it. Embrace it. Keep it on the professional side, the polished side, but go ahead and have your individuality. Wear pops of color as well. So when you're in a networking event, like I was saying, the great orange tie, the fabulous blue jacket, have that pop of color, because that's how people are going to remember you. I see lots of professionals that are in their blue and their gray and their black. It's kind of that uniform. Have a little differentiation color going on so that people can remember you and see you, and it helps that memory. And like I have here, your best accessory is your business cards. Have those with you at all times. You never know when you're going to run into somebody. You can be in Starbucks and the two people in front of you are talking about how lousy their accountant is, or their lawyer is, or they need some help, or hey, I don't even have a succession plan. I don't know who is going to take my business on when and they're having this conversation, and you can just very gracefully say, excuse me, I understand, I overheard you. I hope you don't mind. That's what I do for a living. Can I help you with that? That's what I specialize in. Can I help you with that? And that's, you can very easily, if you're at a children's soccer game and you suddenly are sitting next to one of the parents and chatting up just like you normally would, but then you find out he's a business owner and he needs tax help, or he's, stressed because his employee benefit audit didn't go quite as well as he thought, and he really needs another firm. There's your in. So you can find referrals and build your network in all sorts of ways. You just need to be open and kind of listen. Some don'ts on what to wear. Don't wear old or tattered or stained clothes. Don't anything too revealing or too tight. When in doubt, if you pick up something and you're like, I wonder if this is appropriate. If you have to think and wonder if it's appropriate, don't do it. If there's ever a question in your mind, just don't do it. Better to err on the side of caution on that one. Stay away from perfume or cologne. There are lots of people who are sensitive to smell, and you don't want to turn somebody off or throw them into a sneezing fit. So stay away from that. Also, if you are sick, if you even, a little something, do not attend an event. People would love to meet you, but they would also not love to meet your germs. And be cognizant of your breath. If you are indulging in the garlicky stuffed mushrooms, or maybe at lunch your salad had an abundance of red onions, keep some mints in your desk or keep some mints in your car. It's never fun to walk up and have a conversation with somebody and know exactly what they had for lunch. So be mindful. Do your homework. Before you go to an event, if you can look up the other attendees, get an attendee list in advance if you can. If you're going to a larger event, talk to your marketer for your firms, and they should be able to get an attendee list, especially if your firm's sponsoring the event. And look through the list. Look for anyone that you want to meet, and look them up on LinkedIn. Look up and find out where did they go to school? Did they go to the same school as you? Do they like the same sports teams? That personal connection, that common ground, that interest. Maybe they were born in the same town you were. You never know. So look it up. Do a little homework. But then when you use that stuff, don't come across as creepy stalker person, because that's never fun. Or a know-it-all. Weave it in and say, wow, did you catch that game last night? Because, there might be a Giants fan and they might have got the game. Or, hey, did you see the Warriors last night? So you can try to throw it in normal conversation. But to find that common ground, like I said, you want to build a connection. And then add value. As I was mentioning, as you're talking and you're listening and hearing all about their business and what their pain points might be, you might come across, you'd be like, hey, I had a partner write a really great article on exactly what your problem is, and how we can help you. Do you mind if I send you that article? Can I, we had a great article. Can I send that to you? Just for your own information. And then just let me know if you have any questions once you read it. Make sure to add that value. Or if they talk about, even if it's, hey, you're at a conference and it's in your hometown and you meet other people that are not from there and they're like, yeah, we need to go to dinner. Giving them a dinner recommendation for a restaurant, that's adding value. That's helping a person. So always look for those little opportunities where you have the specialization. Some of you on this webinar might be junior associates, and you might think, I'm fresh out of college. I don't have any experience. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know anything. You do. You just went to school and learned so much that the average Joe doesn't know. The average business owner, they know everything there is about their widget that they make or the service that they sell. They're there for the passion of that piece. A baker is going to know all about baking. A biomed device is all about the science. They didn't go to school for accounting. Most of them didn't. So they don't know accounting basics. They don't know things that you think of that's just like breathing air to you. They don't know that. So having that expertise and having that insight and knowing your key services of your firm so that when they say things when you're talking to them, it triggers in your head going, oh, they might need succession planning. Oh, they might need someone to help them with their estate and trust or their benefit audit or their employee benefit audit, or maybe they're looking to do a SOC 1 or SOC 2 audit. Thinking about those different things, and knowing the services at your firm, doing that homework and really knowing everything your firm does. I know a lot of times if you're audit, you just know audit, or if you're tax, you just know tax, or if you're consulting, you just know consulting. So broaden your horizons. And I'm sure if you walk into any of your partners' offices and say, hey, I want to know more about what you do. I specialize over here on this side of the house. I want to know more about what this side of the house does. That's a great question to ask. Say, hey, can we go to lunch? Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do? Don't be afraid to ask that. There's outside networking to get business, but then there's also the networking that you do in your own firms to understand your firm and to build relationships there that'll help your career as you grow. So minding your manners, please, thank you, the basics. Have a good handshake. You don't want to squeeze too hard. You don't want to have the limp hand. You've all had the good handshake and the bad handshake, and it's not a squeezing match. Show appreciation and gratitude. Saying thank you these days goes a long way. There's very few people that actually will follow up and say thank you. So, if you do that, write your notes, your thank you notes. If you were a guest at somebody's event, at another firm, or somebody else, invited you to sit at their table at a bigger event, shoot them an email or do a handwritten note, just saying thank you. A simple note goes a long way, and it really helps build that relationship and that level of trust, because the more you build a relationship, the more you become that trusted advisor. You've heard me say listen a lot, and we need to remember when we're listening, you're not listening to respond, you're listening to understand. And the more you can get the other person to talk, the more you're going to learn about them and their business. And you're going to learn a lot, because once you get people talking, they'll tend to tell you lots of things, especially if they start to feel comfortable with you. If you've already found that common ground, you both, your kids are both in soccer, you both have the same type of dog breed, there's that common ground built, and you start asking them, tell me about your company, tell me, what is, so you make popcorn, why popcorn? How did you fall in love with becoming a popcorn maker? How did that come about? And get them to talk about their business and just say, wow, so food and beverage is really challenging. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing? And just get them talking. And they'll start giving you all sorts of nuggets that you can just kind of, quickly make notes on the back of their business card. And just kind of get them to talk. Also, studies show that a conversation between two people, the person who talks the most feels the conversation went the best. So allowing somebody else to talk, they'll feel the conversation went fantastic because they got to talk. And for goodness sake, smile. A lot of people you'll get really nervous. Totally understandable if it's your, first or second networking event or your first or second time you've presented something. Nerves hits everybody. You might be shaking a little bit or kind of be bright red, and that's okay. Everyone understands, but smile. There's such a warm glow that comes from people when they smile, and it's really inviting. And then once you're done, make sure to follow up. Connect on LinkedIn to whomever you met, who you feel is going to be a valuable connection. I tend to err on it's better to have quality connections than quantity of connections. Your LinkedIn should be people that that you've actually spoken to. I know I get a lot of random connections from people. They don't even say, and when you connect, give a little, there's that little box that you can fill out that says, hey, I'd like to connect. Let's stay connected. Go ahead and add a little personalization to that and say, it was so great meeting you last night at this event. I really look forward to connecting with you. Or it was really great talking to you about, I enjoyed our conversation about the Warriors. Can you tell I'm doing this presentation from Oakland? Go Dubs. So you really need to, make that follow up to keep that relationship going. And if it is somebody that is a good, strong connection, touch base regularly. Get on the calendar to meet for lunch or coffee on a quarterly basis. If you told them you're going to send them something, you told them, hey, I've got this white paper, make sure to follow up on that and send them the white paper. Or, if you start talking about, food for, some reason, and you really talked about this great restaurant, or maybe you're talking about pets and, I got this great vacuum that got all the pet hair up. You talked about one of those things. You said, I'll send you a link to it. It's great. Make sure you send that link or send that information. And, reciprocate. If they send you some stuff, make sure to reciprocate that and say thank you. And, say, I know we talked about this, have you checked this out? I know one of my connections, I'm big into science fiction, books and movies and things. And so I have a connection that I've made with a banker who's also into that. And we're constantly emailing back and forth going, oh, I read this great book. You should really try this. Or, hey, have you started watching this show? And, what did you think? And, it's making that personal connection and finding that common ground that allows you to build those relationships, especially if you are starting your career, building those relationships with your peers. As you move up in your career together, you can start building those relationships for referring work back and forth. Highly valuable. So let's talk about how to conduct yourself in different professional settings. So the business lunch or dinner, if you're ever at a meal, napkin and lap, always. As soon as you sit down, put that napkin in your lap, not in the front of your shirt. When you sit down, if it's a full setting in front of you, and you've got, it's a round table and everyone's, glasses are on one side and the bread plates are on the other. When you sit down in your hands, you don't have to do it quite as visual as you want. In your left hand, you touch your pointer finger and your thumb together and make a B. And on your other hand, touch your forefinger your pointer and your thumb together and make a D. So the B side, the left side, is your bread plate. The D side on your right hand is your drink. That's how you know which glass to grab or which bread plate to take over when you sit down. I learned that trick a long time ago, and it's helped me, because you sit down and everything's kind of run together and you can't tell what's yours is what's your neighbor's, and that helps. The utensils, normally if you eat from the outside in, so if when the salad sits down, you grab the fork all the way to the outside, and then when the dinner comes in, you move to the next fork. If you have any utensils that are across the top, That's normally for your coffee or dessert or your appetizer, if they bring out an appetizer. Wait till everyone gets their food to begin eating. It's the polite way. If it's a large group, if it's a large table of, say, 8 or more, then when a majority have their food, I think it's okay. Unless the host asks everyone to just go ahead and start when you get your food. And it could be the host of the event. It could be your table host may ask, oh, please, please, please start. Don't wait for everyone. That's when it's polite to start. Never take food with your fingers. Always use the provided tools. That's for others' safety and yours, because you never know, who's touched what. Chew with your mouth closed. You were not raised in a barn. It may sound silly to say that, but you'd be surprised. And don't speak with food in your mouth. If somebody asks you a question, politely cover your mouth for a second and just kind of motion that, oh, I have food, give me a second. And then once you're done and you've chewed and swallowed, then respond. Normally people are like, oh, I'm sorry, I caught you with your mouth full. And it's okay. But it's never fun to talk to somebody with all their food in their mouth. One, they can't understand you and hear you speak clearly. And two, it's not appealing. So there's that other fine line of talking about your professional and you've got this experience and you want to share it with everyone, but you don't want to do it with sounding like a know-it-all or a jerk. Track your successes just for your own record, but also, especially when you're sitting down and speaking with your boss and you want to bring your successes up to him so that, you're tooting your own horn. I know it's not comfortable for everyone to toot their own horn, but it's necessary as a professional. It's necessary in your career for you to be able to advance and show people your worth and what you bring to the table. So, when you have your agenda, when you sit down and do your weekly or quarterly check-ins with your performance manager or your boss, have an agenda. And in that agenda, you can talk about what you've completed since your last meeting. And, make sure when you do that, you give other people credit that were on the team that helped complete that project. But it shows your monthly progress. Have your, this is what's coming up that I'm going to work on, and then have the what has been completed, so that it shows what you've done, what you've participated in. I put in all the events that I've done, the different projects I worked on, and maybe, put on the piece that I helped do within that project. Just, it's touting what you've done in your experience without it being the I've done this and I've done that, and getting into that realm. Make sure you keep your own career journal. Have a little thing off to the side that you can write down what you've done, so that later you can talk about it if you need to. It'll help you when it's time to freshen the resume up and move on. You've got that knowledge, and you don't have to go back and go, oh gosh, what did I do at that position? And what were my top highlights? How did I impact stuff? And then often take a look at your job description. I know many of us, some of us have been in our jobs for a while, and every once in a while it's good to take a look at your job description and say, is that what I'm really doing? Am I going above and beyond what my job description is? Then it's time to maybe ask for a raise or a title bump. But sometimes our job tasks start to stray. And it's good to sit and reevaluate that with your boss and say, here's my job description and what I'm supposed to be doing, but I've kind of strayed over here. Is that okay? Do we need to rewrite my description? Do we need to maybe refocus me, because this job description was made for the company and what the need of the company was, and maybe we need to bring me back into what this was. It's a fair question to ask. And because you're being proactive and asking those questions, it makes you look highly professional and, you know, a team player, that you're really thinking about what's best for the firm. So make sure to do that and say, am I meeting all of this? You might look at that and go, wow, I don't even remember that was on there. Maybe I should start doing that again. So, you know, look, remind yourself. And speaking yourself up to your boss is kind of the appropriate place to do so. You know, share your accomplishments in your agenda. You know, share the love, like I was talking about. Make sure that you say, you know, we launched this week. You know, these people were really helpful in getting it there, and I'm so excited that we, you know, did this successfully. And, you know, share your volunteering expertise. Say, you know, I was just invited to join as a member of this board, or, you know, on your list of accomplishments, say, you know, you volunteered at this charity to doing this, so that it shows your volunteering expertise, as well as let other folks talk about how smart you are, because they will. If you tee them up, they will. You know, especially if you're at a networking event, and, you know, have a wingman. You know, if you're an accountant, bring a banker. If you're, you know, a lawyer, bring an accountant. You know, bring somebody in a similar industry and work the room together, and you can talk about each other, and then it doesn't come off so much as boasting. And you're sharing that kind of expertise about each other. That really helps. When somebody offers up a bit of information, like I think I'd mentioned earlier about succession planning, if somebody says, well, you know, I really don't know who I'm going to be handing my company to. You know, I was my father's succession plan, but I've got no one to hand it to. You know, my child, son, daughter doesn't even want to be involved in the business. What am I going to do? And you can say, you know what, I actually specialize in that. Can I help you? You know, asking if you can help somebody. You'll just see the weight melt right off of them going, yes, please. Social media is a great way to talk about your experience, because it's you know, someplace you can actually refine the art of a humble brag. And people will cheer you on, and the more people that cheer on a simple tweet, the more that they're adding to that credibility of that simple tweet. You know, and you can do something very simple, like who just got their firm B Corp certified, this girl, and just be, you know, or who just passed their CPA exam, this guy. You know, it's all about having fun with it and talking about your experience and your expertise, but not doing it in an overly boastful way. It's that fine line. So now is the point where you actually might need to choose a location for a meeting. And there's some things that you might want to think about. How easy is it to get to that meeting location? What does the parking look like, or is the public transit really good there? The noise level. You know, when I try to do business lunch, I try to pick restaurants that I know are less noisy. You know, some restaurants with a lot of the new decor these days that are very echoey and it's hard to hear somebody. You want to be able to have a conversation with somebody without yelling over all the noise. You know, and is the restaurant someplace where if you know you're going to go and you're going to talk with somebody and you're going to be taking notes and you know, going over different pieces of paper, make sure that you get a table. You know, if it's just you and one other person, most times a restaurant will seat you at a 2-top, you know, just big enough for 2 people. You know, ask for a 4-top. Say, you know, this is going to be a working lunch. You mind if we have a little extra space? Can we sit at a table built for 4 instead of 2? You know, and restaurants will always, you know, say, yeah, sure, fine, not a problem. Just make sure you have enough space for that. Make sure when you choose a restaurant that the menu is appropriate for your guest. You don't want to probably take a vegetarian to a barbecue place, or somebody who is a barbecue meat eater to a vegetarian place. So think about that. You know, and you can always ask your meeting mate, say, hey, is there anything you've been craving this week? You know, it's always a fun way to ask and just say, you know, we're gonna have this meeting. You know, is there anything you've been craving? Maybe you're craving Mexican food or Italian, or you know, and let them share that to help you think about, you know, what places there are. If you have trouble looking for a local place, go to your admin or receptionist in your office. They will have a list. You know, they're booking meetings for partners and managers all the time. So they will have a list of stuff that they prefer that could give you a good idea of where to go. You know, make sure that when you're sitting there is enough room for everyone at the table. Sometimes, you know, things can get a little squished. And think outside the box with it. Does it really need to be a restaurant? Are you just chatting and talking? Maybe, you know, you can go have a game of bowling or bocce and sit, and you know, maybe it's after hours and you guys can have a beer and network and have a little fun at the same time, you know. Or there is one gentleman that comes and visits us often, and he loves really good Mexican food. And so one of the best places nearby is actually a taco truck. They've got outdoor seating. And, you know, I found out I was going to take him to a big fancy restaurant, but then when he said something about, you know, really getting that good, authentic Mexican food, I was like, you know, I could take you to the fancy restaurant, but how'd you like to go to the taco truck that's going to have amazing Mexican food? And so we went and we did the taco truck, and he loves it. Every time he comes back out now, he's like, can you do the taco truck this time? So think outside the box and ask, you know, there might be a little more fun to be had there. And then don't overthink it. Don't stress about all the little things. If you're authentic, if you are yourself, that's what people are looking for, is that authenticity and that connection. You know, don't overthink it. It can distract you. It can make you more nervous. You know, have these things in mind, but at the end of the day, be yourself, and, you know, people will be drawn to that. So I have a few books here for you guys to check out if you don't or haven't already read these. That'll kind of help you more with this particular topic. And I think we're ready to open it up to questions.
So you can just go ahead and put your questions in the chat box, and we will answer them.
And will I see the questions in the chat box, or?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So I'll read them to you.
Okay.
But don't be shy. There are no stupid questions, so this is a good opportunity to ask a question. Okay, here we go. When is the most appropriate time to present a business card?
You know what? It really is feeling the situation. You know, I will walk up to somebody and chat with them for a few minutes and ask them if they have a card. Sometimes we'll automatically, when I meet somebody, I'll pull out my card and hand it to them, and that will prompt them to pull out their card and hand it back. It's a very easy way to get somebody's card without having to do the whole, you know, can I have a card? Sometimes when I'm chatting with somebody and I haven't swapped the card yet, and it's somebody who, you know, every time you meet a person at networking, it's not always going to be a great connection. You know, in networking, you know, you kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince. So go ahead and use that as a good closing and way to exit a conversation, and say, you know, oh, great, it was great meeting you. Can I get your card? Fantastic. I will give you, you know, I will, you know, follow up with you if I have any questions. And you can extricate yourself from a conversation gracefully if the conversation is not going so well. Everyone's had one of those conversations where it's just, there's no connection. It's awkward. It's that person that's telling you their life story. You know, so you can use the can I have your card as a way to exit a conversation, whether you need it or not.
Okay, the next question is, how does How does one steer a dinner guest host away from something you don't want to discuss, whether it be politics, especially if opposing?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one because politics are a gnarly subject right now. Um, so if somebody starts talking about that, well, what you can do first off is if you were going to have a dinner party and you actually are in cahoots with the host, you're hosting with somebody, you can talk about what topics are safe topics and what aren't before all the guests arrive. And just say, okay, let's stay away from these topics just because we don't want it to get too heated. If you are a guest and you can see this is going to go sideways quick with, them coming out and saying something very politically charged, you can always gracefully segue to another topic. I have used things like, somebody started a conversation and it was obvious it was going to go sideways, and it was during, we were at a place that had like a TV for a game that was on, and it was during last year's Warriors game, and it was the playoffs, and I immediately cheered for the other team loudly, like going, woo, hey, they made a score. And it totally broke the ice on the whole table, and everyone then turned their attention to the screen. And then we could move on to another topic. Or, I could immediately, if somebody says something about, for instance, they don't like what Trump's doing with China. And you can say, wow, China and manufacturing or the farming and ag. And you can immediately steer it to, they've started to talk about ag in China. Let's steer it toward agriculture and the things that are going on in ag and say, yeah, agriculture is really having a tough time. That whole issue around the loss of topsoil, and see if anybody grabs, and try to swing the conversation away from the political. I hope that helps.
Okay, the next one is, how can you politely refuse a drink when you don't feel like taking the available drinks?
That's a good one. Not everyone is a fan of alcohol. And, you can just politely decline and say, oh, I'm sorry, or I've used I'm quite dehydrated. I think I'll just stick with water. You know, or, I sometimes I'll say, I'd much rather eat my calories tonight. So you can always turn it into a little bit of almost a joke, if you will. It's always nice to turn that into something a little less serious, and just a simple, oh no, thank you, I'm not drinking this month. I'm abstaining for health reasons. I think it's completely okay.
Okay, and our next question is, do you have any more examples or recommendations on how to start a conversation or how to approach a group of people or an individual?
Absolutely. So you can, if you see a group of people, try, as you're, kind of zooming in on them, make eye contact with somebody. If you can make eye contact with somebody in that group, you're in. And you can walk over and smile and throw out your hand and introduce yourself. Once you have eye contact, you're good. And you're at a networking event. People will be there to network, to meet as many people as possible. It's easy to do. It's just, it's I hate to make the analogy, but it's kind of like dating. You make that eye contact across the bar, go over and introduce yourself. Say hi. All you have to do is throw out your hand, say your name, and, go, oh, hi, John, I'm Jennifer. Oh, I see you're with, Apple, computers. What do you do at Apple? and, just automatically engage them, say your name, say their name, so you have their attention, because remember, that's the most beautiful sound they hear is their name. And then immediately ask them about what they do and, why did you choose to be with Apple? Or, what do you really like about that company? Or, you can just get the conversation rolling that way.
Okay, and the next question is, what if someone at the professional network event asks a personal question or starts flirting?
Yeah. There's some definitely some inappropriateness that will happen at times. That's one is to have a wingman with you so that if there is flirtation, you can have your wingman maybe step in and help. But if the flirting happens and it's not welcome, I always say, at that point, if they're starting to flirt, chances are they're within your personal space. Take a step back, physically away from them, to show the body language of you're not interested, and do not engage with the flirting. Just take a step back. And if the flirting is heavy enough, then, you call them out on it. Just say, you know what, I don't feel that's professional. Honestly, stand up for yourself, stand your ground. Or excuse yourself to the bathroom. Say, it was great meeting you. I need to use the men's room or the ladies' room, and just extricate yourself. Because if it's unwanted advances, you want to get out of that situation immediately. And if it's, I've run into where it is inappropriate drunken advances, and I've actually gone and mentioned something to the host or the reception of the event and just said, I think there's a gentleman who might need to be exited, and let them know, because if he's doing it to you, he's probably going to do it to somebody else. And it could be ladies as well. I don't want to stereotype there. That they just might need a little extra attention, or maybe to be cut off from the bar. Or if it's a very personal question, for instance, after I got married, I know I got a lot of, oh, congratulations, when are you going to start having kids? I found that to be a really personal question. And so, I will automatically, change the subject, or, just say, well, my husband and I all consider that, personal. And, tell them, let them know if they've stepped on your toes. Just saying, I don't know you well enough to answer that. Or you're going to have to buy me dinner first if you're going to want that answer. Make a joke out of it. Because then it's a little, it diffuses the situation a little bit. Because there's some questions that are really personal that people will ask, that I'm always astounded that they feel comfortable asking. And once again, if the question comes up and you're like, I need to go to the restroom, thank you. Or I need to refresh my drink. Restroom's great because then they can't follow you, really. It's a little creepy if they do. But just because they ask you a personal question doesn't mean you have to answer. And turn it back around on them. If they ask you a question that's really sensitive, like if they start to ask your sexual orientation, or, call them out and say, hey, that's not professional. And that's completely okay. If it's a highly unprofessional situation and someone has backed you in a corner, call them out on it, because it is not appropriate, and you want it for your own safety to, call it out professionally, but, and then, exit to the bathroom or whatever to get out of the situation.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, well, with that, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Jennifer, for a very interesting presentation and training. Just wanted to let everyone know that we will be holding our next one Thursday, June 28th. And we'll be joined by senior investigations officers and alternative dispute resolution professionals, and we'll be discussing dealing with difficult conversations. So look out for that registration link, which should be going out in the next couple days. We did record this training, which will be available in a couple hours. So if you're interested in receiving the training, you can email us at accca.usa@acccaglobal.com. And we can forward you a link to register and listen to the training again at your convenience. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.